Hi, Allie. Thank you so much for coming on the Thrive on Nutrition podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm glad that you're here. I know we're talking about adrenal fatigue today.
Yeah,
So before we start, go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are and what you do.
for sure. So my name's Damron. I am an acupuncturist and a personal trainer, and I help women overcome the confusion of health, fitness, nutrition, and so they can feel healthy and happy and do the things they want to do.
Right. And I think a part of it, which is why I'm really glad we're covering this, is our adrenals.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see a lot of people just feeling fatigued and um, not something that I see a lot in the traditional world. I feel like it's
hmm
overlooked quite fairly.
Yeah, totally.
So give us the basics of what adrenal fatigue is, why it happens, what is it, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so adrenal fatigue happens because a lot of us, we kind of know that we have a flight or flight system in our body that is supposed to get us out of danger. And the purpose of that system is like if you're in a car accident or being chased by a bear or whatever, that you can, have some adrenaline help you get through that. So you're a little faster, you can see better, your muscles work better. But then after that, you want your body to be able to rest and rejuvenate and kind of build back up. And adrenal fatigue happens because people are perceiving stress in ways that look like that. And so their bodies are just in constant fight or flight, constantly producing cortisol, adrenaline. And a lot of us feel that way. I think a lot of us go through life feeling really frazzled and hectic and adrenaline pumping. And then you get tired, so you reach for caffeine. And that kind of makes your body feel tired, obviously. It makes your adrenals not want to produce as much cortisol. It makes your body constantly running on adrenaline. And that can start to take away from other hormones. It can take away from your digestive system, can leave you feeling really anxious, really exhausted, having sleep issues, digestive issues, immune system problems, a whole host of issues that people don't really put together.
Right. Um, and I'm writing some things down that you can say
Yeah, perfect.
for, social media stuff.
Yeah,
And like you say, constant fight or flight. It's so true. And I
yeah.
feel like people don't look at like their work and like everything that they have during the day. We're trying to
Mhm.
get by every day, just doing what we
Mhm.
can. I mean, it's hurting us in the long run. So I always tell people, I'm like, if you're like eating great, like you're eating the best diet ever, but you're like
Mhm.
super stressed, I promise, like,
I know. Stress really is the worst thing. And I hate to tell people that honestly, because I was in adrenal fatigue before and I'm kind of type A like most people. And when you're told like stress is really the most harmful thing that you're doing to your body and you try to eat healthy, you try to exercise, you try to do all the things and it's just like your mind that's perceiving all these stressors. It's something that's really kind of difficult to overcome, to tell your body to stop perceiving things as stress so much. But I've recovered. It can be done. It just takes a little bit of practice.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. And is conventional, is adrenal fatigue, seen in conventional, traditional, like I said, it's really overlooked, but do you
Yeah.
feel as a professional, you see it a lot of it being questioned in the traditional world?
I do. So if you go to like a Western MD doctor, um, a lot of them say that adrenal fatigue doesn't exist. And I tell my patients this a lot. So they think of something called adrenal sufficiency, and it's basically when your body doesn't produce enough cortisol and your hormone levels are down. They do see the same things that we call adrenal fatigue. They just don't call it that. And I always tell my patients this, I'm fine with them not calling it adrenal fatigue. It's just a name, but the reality is that we can't deny that cortisol steals extra hormones. When your adrenaline's high and your cortisol's high, it's stealing resources from your digestive system. You're not able to digest food as well. Your bowel movements are off. Your immune system gets impaired because inflammation gets high. None of those are like alternative medicine findings or like out there. That's like a real physiological thing that's happening. And even an MD that doesn't believe in adrenal fatigue I don't think I've met one that doesn't admit that or denies that. So whatever you want to call it is fine, but that is what's happening.
Right. And with adrenal fatigue, have you seen, I know you said, we're talking about elevated cortisol. I feel like it comes in stages sometimes. So like people can be like at the peak where it's just elevated cortisol all the time. And then there's this
Yeah,
drop of where all of a
totally.
sudden you're like flatlining on your cortisol. Can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit about like what's going on, why it does that?
Yeah, so if you like first have a stressor like a big job interview or somebody in your family gets sick or you get sick or whatever, your body produces a little extra cortisol for that short-term thing. If you keep it going and going and going, it keeps going high, and then like you said, eventually it does just drop to straight low cortisol, and that's when you feel more lethargic and exhausted, and you start to have some of the longer term effects. Like it's really hard to get out of bed in the morning, and you feel like when you wake up after 8 hours of sleep, you feel like you need 8 more hours, that you just laid there with your eyes closed. And you start to feel a little bit more depressed and anxious, and you need things to more nourish your body than to give you energy.
Right. So it's just
Yeah,
like us, we can go, 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 and there's going to be
right.
a crash eventually in the future.
Totally.
This is
Yes.
what you want to avoid.
Yes.
I'm do you feel like it's harder? I mean, when you get to that point, I mean, different stages. So like seeing someone with elevated and then seeing someone who's kind of past elevation now is in the crash. Do you feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's harder? It's not impossible, but it's harder to fix.
It takes a little bit more time, I think. I always tell people, so I personally have had low cortisol before. I got it diagnosed when I was in acupuncture school, actually, and I was only 25, so I was pretty young to have low cortisol. And I always tell my patients this too, that it takes you heal about 10 to 25% a month. So if you've been under a ton of stress or had something really traumatic happen to you or whatever, it can take 10%, or you can heal 10%, and it can take almost a year to feel like yourself again if it's been really prolonged. If you just have like a job interview that was super stressful or a work deadline that you worked really hard on for a couple weeks or whatever, you can heal from that relatively quick. Just give your body maybe some herbs, eat super healthy, some good nutrients, rest a lot, practice some deep breathing, those types of things, and you can get bounced back quickly. It's those
Right.
people that have been under prolonged stress that just use their adrenaline to push them forward, drank coffee, and didn't ever look back and take care of themselves once, that it takes a bit of time to get them back, but it can be done for sure.
Right. And with lab testing, that's a big one. I am a big
Hmm.
fan of the Dutch. So that's like a
Yeah.
urinary one because I like that one
Hmm.
because it kind of shows everything. It does
It
blood
shows
tests,
everything.
which I
Yeah.
love so much.
Yes.
But I'm also the person that like, if I could take every lab test in the world, I would take it because
I know, me too.
I love to know my
Such
body.
a nerd. Yeah.
But is there any other ones, or you can go in a little bit more about the Dutch and why you like it, things like that?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things, obviously, to test for adrenal stuff is your cortisol level. You can go to your MD, they'll test your cortisol level. The problem with the blood test, as you know, is that if you get your blood taken, cortisol changes, and it should every or during the day. So like it's highest in the morning, it goes down, you have a little bit of a like cortisol dip in the mid-afternoon, and it goes up a bit at night. Um, and so if you get your cortisol blood level taken, it gives you one number, and you have no idea where in the curve you are. If
Right.
you've spiked yet, if you haven't. So it's really difficult to look at just that one number for cortisol. I
That's the
like
same
the
goes with like blood sugar, everything. I hate when they take
totally
that one snapshot. I'm like, no, it changes.
right. It does change a lot. And so it's really beneficial to do things like the Dutch test or a saliva test for cortisol, where you're taking it 5 times a day or so, because then you can see the true pattern of what it's doing. If it's high at one point and maybe it gets low at one point in the day, and then you can tailor your nutrition plan, your treatment plan based on that. The other things that you can test, I always say adrenal fatigue is like one of those things that's just a variety of symptoms. You have to listen to the patient to see what they're experiencing. A lot of times I check progesterone, DHEA levels. Your adrenal glands do produce more than just cortisol. They produce several other hormones too. And when cortisol is high, it kind of steals those other hormones. And so a lot of people have low DHEA, which we know is a precursor to testosterone, low progesterone. And so I like to test those too. Um, I also like to test sometimes inflammation markers. High cortisol can lead to high inflammation. Insulin, high cortisol also leads to high insulin. So you just really listen to the patient. And other than the cortisol, I just kind of listen to them and figure out what tests to do. But the Dutch is great. I mean, it gives you every number.
I know.
Need.
And I love it, and the pathways and everything about it. I just feel like it's a very, same with hormones. I don't like taking my hormones through blood. I mean, doctors will, and I've had it done, but I just like seeing that more bigger picture. So like when people are low in testosterone, you know, the ultimate thing they want to do is just give you a supplement of testosterone.
Right.
But when that could be ultimately, you need to focus on your adrenals and your adrenals, not, you know, put a Band-Aid on the low testosterone. But I feel like the Dutch helps you get to like, all right, what do we really need to support?
Yeah, I agree. And I really actually dislike when people just give patients hormones. That tends to be a really popular thing in the functional medicine and naturopathic world right now, which is not necessarily bad, but let's figure out why, like you said, your testosterone's low, why your progesterone's low, instead of just giving progesterone.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what do you feel like the top nutrients are for good adrenal function?
So vitamin C, vitamin E, B vitamins are imperative. They will actually help calm your body and give your adrenals kind of a break from the stress response. What else? Magnesium also is huge. Magnesium kind of lets your cells rest and provides energy actually to the adrenal glands. Calcium and some other trace minerals like zinc, manganese, selenium, iodine, those provide calming effects to your body. So, you know, supplement with what you feel like you need. I usually give a magnesium supplement. People are usually obviously deficient in that. Sometimes we'll do vitamin B or B vitamins and vitamin C. But if you're eating a well-balanced diet, you generally should get those trace minerals in pretty well.
Right.
And then there's obviously always tests to check your trace minerals and your vitamin levels and make sure you're not deficient.
Right. And it's so important because usually when people ask, like, you know, are supplements, like supplement forms needed? And I always tell them sometimes if you're really deficient, you need that extra boost to get you to where you need to be. And, you know, unfortunately, our food isn't as nutrient dense as our ancestors had it. So supplements are kind of needed.
Yeah, totally.
And then what are some other, you know, lifestyle things that we could do to also help support adrenal health outside of nutrition?
Yeah, so I always tell people that healing from adrenal fatigue is a very multifaceted approach. And people usually come to me, and probably to you too, and just want some supplements to take or some pills or whatever.
The magic pill?
Right. And firstly, you have to look at why you got into this. Is your life super stressful? Is your life super busy? Are you spending time on things that you don't want to be doing that you hate every day? Those types of things. And I was kind of fought this for a long time. Like when I had babies, it was just like, I'm stressed. I'm up all night. There's nothing I can do about this. But there really are things you can do about it. You can say no to invitations. You don't have to give an excuse. You need to let your body rest sometimes instead of running yourself completely ragged for like 14 hours a day every day. That's not going to serve you very well. Doing things like deep breathing. So if you do like a meditation app like Headspace or the Calm app, that is wonderful. Otherwise, just do like some square breathing. So you inhale for 4 counts, hold that for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, and keep going for even like 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. I think a lot of people get the misconception of meditation as like, you have to sit there quietly and not think for an hour. And it's just totally not like that. Use a guided meditation, sit there for 10 minutes. It really will add up an accumulative effect after a while.
Yeah, I use Insight Timer. And same thing. I don't think I've ever done a meditation longer than 5 minutes.
No, mine are 10 and I'm like, you know, raring to go. And I have known to meditate forever, obviously. And I finally in January was like, okay, make a conscious effort at doing this every single day. And for the most part, I've stuck to it. And it's been great. And doing things like gratitude. I actually just posted on my social media today to practice gratitude. Like think about a time that you were super happy and calm and not stressed, and just really feel that again. And like that will make your body calm and stop producing adrenaline and all these things. Journaling is great. If you have a lot of stress or anger or grief or whatever, those things are also great to get out. And then other than that, sleeping obviously is huge. Letting your body rest. A lot of people with adrenal fatigue have sleep problems. So it can be hard sometimes, but trying to get rest and sleep is good. Changing your mindset. And then lastly, after all that in nutrition, taking some herbs. So there's adaptogen herbs out there, things like ashwagandha, rhodiola, schisandra. There's so many different ones, medicinal mushrooms that I like that will actually help kind of make you more resilient to cortisol. They'll block the effects of it so that you can actually heal from that. So they're very helpful, but they're not to be taken like in lieu of everything else. You have to actually change your lifestyle a little bit too.
Right. And I can definitely sense like when I got my Dutch, I was like a little nervous because I was like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a mom, I'm like everything. And I was expecting maybe a little bit of imbalance because I'm definitely type A like you are and just want to,
yeah, totally
make things and just I'm a perfectionist. And I was very surprised at the perfect curve of the elevation in the morning, and then just like I was all in the normal range and it looked so beautiful. And
that's awesome.
I know, but I have a high DHEA. But seeing that, because I take adaptogens, I always make sure I take the Gaia Herbs Adrenal health one for the nighttime. So it has like the cordyceps and ashwagandha and all those, and I can definitely feel a difference for sure.
Yeah, I love that formula.
I know that you said sometimes with going back to some of the lab work we were talking about and the DHEA, because it is produced by the adrenals. What if someone has like normal adrenals, but their DHEA is off, like it's low?
That can
Does that also show an adrenal issue?
Generally speaking, yeah. I try to give them some adaptogens generally just to balance things out, because sometimes cortisol can be normal, but like you said, progesterone can be off, and it generally is still a adrenal issue.
Right, because it's produced mainly from the adrenals. So I know people just sometimes like to think just cortisol with the adrenals, and if that's fine, they kind of write it off and stuff. But
yeah,
is another one. How I know that we've kind of covered it in last question. We actually did. I was going to ask, like, how do you avoid adrenal burnout? So obviously, like, kind of what you said, getting good sleep.
Yeah, just changing your mindset. Honestly, that's been the biggest thing for me. I've had adrenal fatigue several times in my life, actually. And it kind of creeps up on you. You feel a little stressed, and then one day your periods are really bad, or you can't sleep, or you're feeling just exhausted or whatever. And I've taken adaptogen herbs for several times in my life, and I love them. But this last time, really changing my mindset has been huge, and letting some stuff go, which is really hard as someone that's type A and a perfectionist, but it's necessary. You can't do everything all the time, and that's okay. So just finding some grace for yourself in that, and letting things go can be huge. And actually like physiologically telling your body not to produce adrenaline to get everything done and perfect. Yeah.
I think my faith, which I know everyone, has different beliefs and stuff, but I think that helps a ton because it allows to give myself grace, but also lets me know like I don't have control over things.
Right.
Things are going to happen to me for a reason, and just, let go, let God, that kind of thinking and mentality. So like having that faith, which is so funny because studies do show people that have faith, whatever it is, whatever you believe in, they do live longer. And that's probably because we end up having the mindset of just like, it's out of our control. Yeah. The universe is going to do its thing. And
exactly.
we have to ride the wave.
Yeah. Being an entrepreneur has really taught me that. Like, you trudge forward and you do what you can, but it's just consistency, and the stress I have learned kind of to just let it go a little bit. The ebbs and flows will come, and they just kind of are part of the journey.
And I feel it's so funny because we teach this and stuff, and sometimes we just don't take our own advice. I've caught myself of like, I'm not even taking my own advice. Like, let me step back.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
And take my own advice. But
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
I just get so wrapped up in like helping others. It's so
Uh-huh.
easy, especially in this like career, to like lose yourself in that.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, so I have a website. It's alliedamron.com. And then obviously Facebook, it's allie.damron. And then Instagram, alliedamron. So I'm on Instagram a lot. It's kind of where I live. And then I have a podcast, The Allie Damron Show, where I share women's health tidbits and tips all the time and have guests. And so very similar to yours.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.